in all reality, Preludes are Hondas, and Hondas and Fords are like the most hated car manufacturers. So maybe this will be a good thing. All right, guys, we're back again in the garage. It's another cold winter day, of course, but it's nice and sunny out. And today we are doing something different than the Prelude. I've had this 65 or 64 T-Bird for 2 years now, and the freeze plugs went out on it, so it's time to pull this motor and freshen it up because I want to drive it this summer. So we're just going to go through actually what needs to be done in order to pull this motor. So this is an automatic, but like any motor, there's a transmission. So underneath of the car here, we have the bell housing, which we might be able to see. And underneath of there, you have a little plate that covers the flex plate there. So we need to unbolt the torque converter from the flex plate so that we can eventually pull this motor off. So as you can see, one bolt there is removed, but we need to get to the other one. So I need to put the battery in the car and crank it over so that we can get access to those bolts. So I already took the plate off, and I removed the radiator already to give us clearance in order to get the motor out. We are gonna have to take the hood off, and then from there we have to disconnect all of the wires and coolant pipes, as well as the air conditioning and the power steering setup. So this is the air conditioning compressor. So I'm hoping I can just take this completely off, set it aside, that way I don't have to break the lines open. And same thing with the power steering. So that all needs to be done. But one quick thing here, down here is your starter relay. And when you hook the battery up to it, you can actually touch the wire to this part of the relay, and that's gonna create the starter to click on, similar to what I did with the Hondas. But at this time, you don't have to, I should say this time with this car, you don't actually have to go and touch the starter. This is just the relay. So that's how I'm gonna be cranking the motor over in order to get to those flex plate bolts. So I'm just gonna put you on a time lapse here and get to it, just because there's a lot to be done here. And you know, the weekend with the woman is to do stuff. So I spent all day yesterday, Valentine's Day, in the garage fixing my truck, fixing the Prelude. There's still more I gotta do to the Prelude, but I gotta do something with this guy because summer's coming. So on the time lapse, here we go. All right, guys, just got the bolts done off of the flex plate. One thing I did want to mention is part of the reason why I love Fords as well as Hondas is majority of the work on a Ford can be done with a 9/16 or a 1/2 inch socket or open-ended wrench. So the bolts on the flex plate were 9/16, and like I said, majority of everything else is 1/2 inch. So next operation here is to disconnect all of the wiring. I already took the battery out, and just so you guys can get a close-up of how I have this wired up in order to get the motor to turn over, I have the wire just wrapped around that little terminal down there, and then I'm just touching it to here, which is your positive lead coming off your battery, and that'll cause your engine to start up from the engine bay or rotate from the engine bay. So if you have a running motor, just keep in mind that you can actually start the vehicle like that. Depending on how old the car is, they didn't have you know, a kill switch in the ignition to prevent you from starting the car up without the key in there. So theoretically you could start it up this way. But next thing I'm probably gonna do is start disconnecting the fuel lines, disconnecting the starter and removing the starter. I gotta disconnect the wires off of the alternator as well. So, and all these coolant lines, everything needs to come out. So we're gonna get on it. One thing I did wanna mention is I had already disconnected the lines for the transmission cooler, which is actually inside of your radiator on a 64 T-Bird and a lot of other Fords. Those are already disconnected. I put some tape on this upper one to keep the trash, you know, dirt from falling in there. Got to do the lower one there. And then we're just gonna keep on rolling. But I think I'm going to leave the hood on for now, just because it really doesn't bother me. But eventually this is gonna need to come off. That way I have enough room to get in here with the cherry picker and take the motor off and put it on the stand. So here we go again. Sorry. It's gonna be a lot. All right, guys, so we've made some significant progress here. It's been maybe an hour or two, 2 hours, but everything is disconnected. Literally, I haven't missed one thing. Took the hood off, and I suggest that if you ever attempt to do this, definitely have someone help you. I almost broke the windshield because it slid backwards and just slightly touched the windshield. So that would have been really bad because this is one of the blue tinted windshields and they're hard to find. But at this point, everything is disconnected. I just pushed the compressor up over here along with the power steering pump. And I also disconnected the exhaust from the headers. Now I might have to take the heads off, or the headers off rather, but I'm hoping not to have to do that just because I'd rather do it once the motor is out. But yeah, everything's disconnected. The bolts, there's 4 bolts back here, actually 6 bolts, but there's 4 bolts you have to access from the top here, and then 2 on either end here on the block that you can get undone. So we are ready to pull this thing. I just want to go to the hardware store and grab some washers for the plate here. It's called a lift plate, and I want to put some washers on there just because the nuts are kind of teeny tiny, and I don't want to, as I just dropped one, see how small these guys are? And I don't want the lift plate to pull these through, or I should say the weight of the motor pull those through, and you know, the block end up on the floor. So I'm gonna go get some washers. I have to get some bolts for my stand here because they're just not long enough. And we're gonna try to pull this thing today. So hopefully all goes well. I'm gonna be doing it by myself, which isn't ideal, but hey, it is what it is. One man show, I love it. All right guys, be right back. Alrighty everybody, the moment that you've been waiting for, or at least I have. Time to pull the 390. Got the engine hoist set up here, got the stand ready, got the grade 8 bolts, got the frickin' lift plate on there, so we're getting ready to lift this guy right out in a couple minutes here. So, I'll see you in a bit.